We have 5 all-stars here, and they're going to answer the following question for you. How is what you're doing an example of real NFT adoption with a tangible benefit across sports and entertainment? So here are our panelists. To my right, Dirk Weyel is the CEO of Striking. Brad Feinstein, the head of global business development for Consensus. James Haft, founder of the Pacific Alliance Limited. Sean O'Connor is the co-founder and product lead for Saffron Solutions. And finally, Rahul Sood, who's the co-founder and CEO of Unicorn. So we're going to do this panel a little bit differently. We're going to do it as a speed round. And each of my colleagues will have 3 minutes to get up and talk to you about their NFT. And we're going to start with Rahul.
Hi, everyone. Just if you could bring up that deck, that would be good. Hello, hello? Okay, here it is. All right, I have 3 minutes to blow through this really quick. Quick introduction about my company, Unicorn. We are a regulated esports betting company. We have a platform where gamers can come and they can connect their favorite video games like Fortnite, League of Legends, and whatnot to the platform. And when they play games, they earn tokens. And they can also watch professional matches and bet on them. And they can also bet on themselves in video games. We're basically creating the future of wagering entertainment. Today, though, I want to talk to you about horse racing. Horse racing is massive in my business of gambling. Anybody here from the UK or Australia or anywhere, even in the US, horse racing is big. And so what we've done is we've partnered with a company out of Australia, and they created a token that's a horse that's tradable. You can basically buy these thoroughbreds that live and breathe on the blockchain. What makes it really cool is that you can buy them, you can breed them, and you can race them, right? And so, and if you've ever been to Europe and you've seen those virtual horse racing terminals, this is where it gets next level, because this isn't a card game. This is actually built on Unity. And when we do that, we've already got approval from our regulator. We're going to be taking bets on it. So you'll be able to watch these races on Twitch. And in a typical horse race, you might have 12 horses in a race. In our case, we could have thousands of horses, and we'll be running horse races daily. And we're running our first race in a few months. You'll see it soon on the Unicorn website. We'll even have collectibles like really rare horses. And these horses have specific bloodlines. Some of them are more rare than others. Some of them have higher chances of winning than others. But what's important is there's only going to be 38,000 horses created out of Genesis. And I think we've sold around 5,000 so far. And it's neat because, in horse racing, you have a dirt track that you race on. But our COO is a guy who used to be on the Australian Racing Board, and he always envisioned having a race across the Sydney Harbour Bridge. But it never got approved. I wonder why. And so what we've done is we've created virtual tracks across the Sydney Harbour Bridge, across the Las Vegas Strip, and you can actually watch your horse race, and you can zoom in different angles and zoom in on the horse. You really get attached to this thing. And imagine if it wins a race with a $10,000 prize pool, what it does for the viewing audience, and also just the value of that horse alone. So, we're building the racing platform. I just really want to show you quick. We're bringing in brands, so you can see how you can do branding with it and that sort of thing. And this is what it looks like. And then I'm done.
There's a lot of buzz around today's Group 1 with the star attraction Satoshi, expecting to take the largest prize pool in racing history. They're on their starters' orders, and they're out of the gates. Excitement mounting. What a race this is going to be. And here comes Satoshi, scorching past Uncharted and Zeus to the outside. What a race that was. That will be remembered forever.
That's awesome. Thank you. Our next speaker is Brad Feinstein from Consensus.
Hello, everyone. So each and every one of us are living in the future. We have been first adopters. We are thinking about what's going to come next. And I'm excited to talk about something that is here now. So Consensus has partnered with the Sacramento Kings to create the league's first blockchain authenticated memorabilia platform powered by Triumph. So what we are doing is we are taking game-worn jerseys, so by a player. So our first jersey was by Buddy Hield. Our second one was by De'Aaron Fox. And we are connecting them through the equipment manager and a non-fungible token. So we believe, just like you'd never buy a house or a car without a title or a deed, you will one day never buy your unique piece of memorabilia without a digital proof of authority. And I have some statistics. We are talking about a reach of 300 million audience members have read or learned about what we're doing here. That is the massive potential that we're talking about. Tens of thousands of users tuned in to watch these auctions. This is happening right now. And something that very exciting happened just today. Our first NFT was put on public mainnet through OpenSea and is available for all of us to see. So this item, right, is now available in a never before possible way. So I have this physical jersey, right, this unique one-of-a-kind thing worn by a player, right, someone that I love, a team that I am so fanatical about. And I now own that. I not only own it in the physical environment, I own it in the digital universe as well. And we all certainly recognize how meaningful that could be. So what we're doing, right, is we believe that this unique connection is incredibly powerful and will give us ownership in a way that's never before been available. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Our next speaker is Dirk Weyel.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm from Germany, from Berlin in Germany, and we are building Striking.io. Oh, there was the clicker. Oh, yeah, there it is. And which is a platform for digital collectibles centered around strong sports IP. So my personal background is in games. So for the last 20 years, so I made the whole journey from PlayStation 1 games over PC games to free-to-play online games. And with Striking, we did build in the last couple of years a completely non-blockchain fantasy sports game where we're concentrating on soccer, and which is live since 3 years with a license of the German Bundesliga. And we are, since last year, we have started to look into the NFT space, and we're now adding NFT player cards with licensing partners to the platform. So we started with Bayern Munich as our first licensing partner. And so we did the first pre-sales in December and January with very rare player cards. And so we generated around 80,000 USD worth in ease, and with the first pre-sales with a global brand like Bayern Munich. But our approach is not to build a Bayern Munich game. It's a platform approach where we are going to add more licenses, more IP, step by step, also for different sports with clubs and leagues and other rights holders, and create an ecosystem where users can collect and trade, which is sort of the basic for the collectible part, but also compete and earn, which is the difference, because we are adding the fantasy sports mechanic to the platform to give really gameplay to the NFTs, and to create more engagement and more incentives for users to really use and trade the NFTs. So this is what we're working on. Since Q4 last year, we also joined the Animoca Brands Group, which is a strong partner also to target the Asian markets, and that's what we are doing. Thanks.
Thank you, Dirk. We have another fascinating NBA application, and Sean is going to tell us about it.
Hey everyone, Sean O'Connor here. I'm a product consultant at Saffron Solutions, where we work to make blockchain usable. Some of the work I'm doing also is with a company called Block Native that does a lot of work in the NFT space, helping provide transaction usability infrastructure, so user onboarding and transaction notifications. We work with a lot of leading NFT dApps. But through the work with Dream Fan Shares, we're really excited about the possibility of leveraging NFTs to drive home the notion of fan engagement by doing things like dropping tickets to exclusive events, digital collectibles, et cetera, to really kind of take the world of decentralized finance and make it more personal and really rally around the ideas of fandom. And as sport fans, we all know how engaging the fandom can be, and we are excited that sports are starting to push blockchain further and into the popular vanguard. Thank you.
Thank you, Sean. Last speaker is my friend James Haft.
Thank you, John. Hi, I'm James Haft. I'm the founder of Pal Capital. We're the largest holder in a public company that's a fund, which is the only liquid investment you can make in distributed ledger technologies as an investor. We're focused on companies that start with communities. We think it's more valuable to have people than money at this stage. If I handed you $5 million, you'd still have the same problem you had yesterday and $5 million. But if I handed you 10 million people, you'd have a business and you'd have the opportunity to raise money. So we're focused on those opportunities where we can take the community and bring it back to a technology platform that lets them exercise their passion. And a good example of that, where we're focusing first, is sports. Because what's better than sports fans in terms of being global, boundless communities? So we have 3 major platforms right now that we're working with. The first one is Trade Stars, which is a fantasy sports game based on Ethereum platform. It's out of Argentina, but their first product is fantasy sports for cricket in India. And Gaston is over here. Gaston, raise your hand if you want to talk to Gaston. Our second platform is Sportscaster, and Kevin April, the CEO, is right here. Sportscaster has a long history in being important in how communities are formed in sports, and their current version is a fan engagement model based on a coin called FanChain, and we encourage you to find that. And the third one is we have an exchange which onboards you through an iOS app where you don't realize you're being onboarded through a KYC AML platform, and you end up having the ability to trade non-fungible assets in a way that you don't realize that you're actually dealing with a security token. So you can now basically invest in your passion and make bets and look for the outcomes while controlling a security token without knowing that you're actually involved with securities. So it's able to get past the technology and straight through to the community. Thank you for having us, and hope you enjoy the show.
Why don't you guys all grab the mics? So that's a sense of the 5 panelists we have. I also have a chance to work with Kevin April at Sportscaster, and if you haven't checked out Sportscaster, besides the blockchain connection, it is a fantastic way to watch live sports events because you can choose your sportscaster during a live event. So it's a truly unique new application worth checking out. So earlier this morning, David Pakman talked about all the potential, and having had the privilege of being at this conference a year ago, the quality of what we're talking about today and what I've heard this morning is night and day. Really exciting, especially in sports. The numbers right now that David laid out are tiny. So my question for the panelists is, we all reconvene here 2021, what needs to change in order to accelerate the kind of exciting things that you're working on now? What are the factors that have to change?
I think that one of the things that needs to change is to work from the communities back to the technology. Most of the people that participate in these markets don't really care about the technology. If it was mice running around with notes in their mouth, but it was still related to their passion and it was exciting, they'd still participate. So I think what we need to do is find those large markets out there like the NBA, like horse racing fans, et cetera, and find those communities that already exist and then serve them with their passion so that we can onboard communities instead of individuals.
So I think we have to make things people want. And I'll say that again, make things people want. It's very easy to go off in our bubbles and live in this technology universe. The amount of steps required to get crypto, to trade and interact with our NFTs is still very complicated. So it's not just the words we use, it is how we are thinking about engaging our fans, our clients, making the UX and UI easy to understand. And it begins with the dev tools and creators, right? We need to empower our most creative engineers and builders to keep building. I've settled in on communities that have strong enthusiasm. That's sports, that's entertainment. So we recognize that there are going to be fans that want these products. So now we need to figure out how do we enable this incredible new technology with scarcity and the digital universe with items that they want.
We've been working on communities, obviously with esports and that sort of thing. We have a pretty large gaming community that uses our platform. But what we find, really challenging is just the tools. We've built a wallet that's super easy to collect tokens on. But when it comes to buying NFTs, if you go to z.run today, you can actually buy horses now. But man, using MetaMask, installing it on your browser, going through all that bullshit, nobody wants to do that, right? And it really is a terrible experience, and we know this. But not to say that MetaMask is bad, it's just very techy. And we want to make this available to real consumers. And none of our customers care about blockchain. What they care about is just what they love to do, which is watch esports, play video games, watch horses, and bet. So they just want the easiest way that they can bet. And that's what we need to do.
Yeah, I agree to that. It's because we are targeting sports fans, so they're already engaged. They are passionate about their sports. We know that they like to collect and to trade and to compete against each other. But the reason why they should now then really step into the NFT space needs to be clear as well. So the usability is definitely also one of our main points, but also the gameplay, because the users tend to really start being really engaged if there is a good gameplay around it. And so that's what I've learned in the games industry. Then gamers adopt very quickly when they have the right incentive reward schedule scheme. And this often comes with gameplay.
The only thing I have to add is Joe Lubin talks a lot about 1 million devs, and I think this infrastructure or this industry is still very much in the infrastructure build-out phase, and we're finally getting to the point where things like wallets and private keys are getting hidden in the background, which will ultimately make it easy for your average everyday fan to actually engage with the power of blockchain.
So Jody gave me a question from the audience. It's anonymous, so obviously he's part of Jody's survey. Question is, and it's for you, Rahul, are there any regulatory issues with NFT horse racing, or is there a blurred regulatory line between gaming and gambling when you're using NFTs?
Look, when it comes to regulatory issues, this is the bane of my existence, to be honest. Being in the US, living in Seattle, and running an international gambling company on blockchain is not easy. So we deal with regulators on the gambling side on a regular basis, and we have a very good relationship, and we have good clarity in that area. But when it comes to the security side, it's very gray, it's challenging. Because, in 2017, all of these tokens were created out of thin air. And, let's face it, 98% of them are going to fail. And regulators are here to protect consumers. That should be their job, not to stifle innovation. But the question is there regulatory concerns? Always. And that's partly why I'm losing my hair. But I think over the next year, we should see more clarity and it'll be better.
Hey, Sean, can you talk a little bit about the development of the project with Spencer Dunwity and how that came to be and what's the value that fans can get out of it?
Yeah, so I've been working with Spencer for about 1.5 years now, originally at Consensus when Brad and I were colleagues on the sports project. Spencer's vision has been really around providing liquidity to artists and increasing fan engagement through creating regulated security tokens.
So I think the project with Spencer is visionary and an example of what's going to come, meaning that he can now take his personal time and make that available to his fans who can interact with him in some way. He's going to be a leader among players. If this thing works out for him, there'll be a long line of people interested. One observation I have, and I'm just interested in your guys' opinion, is it feels like the development here is really sort of the intersection between gaming and sports. We spent a lot of time talking about, is esports, is it sports, is it the future of sports, whatever, but it seems like the development that you guys are working on is where these worlds begin to come together, and certainly it's appealing to the same audience. Am I right on that?
I think you absolutely are, and I would actually urge you to shift your thinking less about the difference between sports and gaming and more about fandom in and of itself. For anybody who's ever been to an esports tournament, the energy in the room is on par with any major league sporting event, and the fandoms are just as excited about the possibilities in the competition.
I think also going back to David Pacman's presentation about presenting an experience that's superior to the screen and TV-based games and participation. I think that we have the opportunity to engage people, peer-to-peer between each other to share and create experiences and share passions, which transcend whether it's a real sport or an e-sport.
So I think there's a connected component, and I will now talk about the future that I want to live in. So if I win one of these jerseys, I want to be recognized for owning it. So instead of an emoji at a basketball game, show me with my jersey. I then want to take that jersey and get a power-up in a game that I play. So I think that there is the opportunity to connect these unique digital assets in a way that we have not seen yet. And once we begin to thread that needle and ultimately create the platforms to showcase what we can do with these digital assets, we will then really begin to see not how it is explained, but what can I do with it.
Like to open it up to the audience. Anybody have any questions about sports for our panel? Thank you, Jody.
Hello, Dirk. What is the next step for owning those collectibles? Is there a possible way for an owner of the NFT to maybe receive some incentives for players that score more goals or goalies that have more saves, better statistics, kind of like fantasy sports or something like that?
Yeah, we are going to add these, the core fantasy sports mechanic. Obviously, it's a prediction game based on real-life performance data. This is what we already have in our fantasy soccer game, and we are currently working on making this, let's say, this challenge system where users can compete against each other, then also workable for NFTs. So that could then be that so we are planning to launch that and for the upcoming season in August, which starts in August again. And so there could be a challenge, let's say Bayern Munich plays Borussia Dortmund, and then the challenge would be, okay, pick a lineup of 3 Bayern Munich players, a defender, a midfielder, and an attacker, and you use your NFT player cards to build your lineups. And then if you're good in that and you put, it also means that if you only have 2 Bayern Munich NFTs, you need to go to the secondary market, look for a third one if you want to participate in the challenge. And then you can use the players in the challenge and the NFTs, and if the ones that you picked did really perform well in real life, you will get more points than your opponent. So you can level them up and make them more valuable and then sell them again later on.
To throw in a shameless plug for TradeStars, that's exactly how the platform works. There's an algorithmically driven value for the players based on their performance, which you can anticipate and create a market value when you anticipate there to be an arbitrage between the current value and the future value based on the algorithms.
If I may, Rahul?
Yeah,
Can you just quickly explain how to? Do you also have a level up version of the horses? If I own a horse, how can I make it, more improved, and how do I race
Yeah,
it?
I'll just give a brief summary. So, like I said, there's 38,000 Genesis horses available for sale. 5,000 of them have traded so far. People are trading them on a secondary market currently. We've seen horses sell as high as $8,000 US, roughly. The incentive really as a horse owner is you buy into a race and your horse enters a race, and if your horse happens to win, you win the prize money. And the cool thing about it is that's not gambling. The gambling part is when you watch it on Twitch and you see all the markets and the odds on horses, and you bet on those horses. And you'll be able to do that in markets where gambling is regulated. Gambling on horses is regulated and allowed. So it's really neat. Like we own the entire infrastructure where people are sort of buying and breeding these horses. But the crazy part is the thousands or millions of people around the world, we hope, that will be watching these races and betting on them. And we know they will be. Like we know they'll come because we already have the audience. We just have to push them that way.
Thank you. Thanks to our great panelists.